Hello everybody, UFC 299 has just wrapped up and I'm going to give my breakdown of the entire card, starting from the early prelims, Joanne Wood vs. Marina Moroz, to the main event of Suga O'Malley vs. Chito Vera 2. This overall was a pretty damn good card, okay? Now, I have a few complaints, but we'll get to there when we get to there. I want to keep this just a breakdown of the event because I also have a matchmaking video that's got to come out and just a few other videos to talk about what happened tonight because a lot happened. With that out of the way, let's get straight into it. Not a long intro. Joanne Wood vs. Marina Moroz. She wins by a split decision. Overall, a good fight. This was a good start of the night. I did not expect this fight to go as hard as it did. Do I agree with the decision? 100%. I'm going to be honest with you. If you believe that this was a robbery, like, here's the thing, you can say this was a close fight. This was definitely a split. Marina Moroz definitely did enough in the first few rounds to, get ahead. You can argue the second, but Joanne Wood undeniably, so that she got that dog in her and destroyed Marina Moroz in the third round, almost finishing her not once but twice. The spinning back fist that she was able to hit, like, that's a good last great strike to put on your highlights. Yes, no. Split decision win for Joanne Wood. I 100% agree on this. Fun scrap. I'm surprised it didn't get anything. I guess a lot of people got performance bonus purely because they got a finish in their fight. This one probably deserved a little bit of recognition. I hope she got taken care of by the UFC because this was surprisingly good. And I hate to be that guy, but like, when UFC big cards start with a women's MMA fight, it's very mixed. It's either going to be a good scrap to just disappointing. This was a good scrap. This one was a great surprise. And I'm sure everybody that was here for the early prelims was happy they watched it. Joanne Wood gets it done and goes off into retirement. Enjoy it, Joanne Wood. Marina Moroz, that's rough. That's really rough. I'm sorry. Sorry for the weird cut my dogs were barking, so I'm just gonna start again with the CJ Vergara fight. Overall, honestly, pretty good fight. It was a pretty good coming out party for Alsu Amabayev. I know he's been in the UFC for a minute, but I swear, these Kazakhstanis, man. It feels a lot like the Dagestani takeover that Khabib kind of ushered in, and yes, I was aware that there was a few Dagestanis that came before him, but they weren't made mainstream until Khabib. And I feel like with the comeuppance of Shavkat Rakhmonov, we're starting to see these Kazakhstani fighters coming out more in the UFC. Overall, this was a great performance for Alsu Amabayev. He's taking him down at will. CJ Vergara comes into the fight, misses weight, and still gets ragdolled. Honestly, that's what it felt like. Alsu Amabayev, I feel like these guys from Kazakhstan, though, I feel like they do too much with the spinning back kick. Like, it happens every once in a while when you have a striker that, admittedly, if you just kept it more to the basics, I think they would do a little bit better. Like, I feel like if a few of these Kazakhstan fighters, if they just did a 1-2 and a teep, throwing a low kick here and there, because they were going sin to sin a couple times, and less of the spinning back kicks. I understand it's entertaining, and maybe I'm just being a troll. I feel like you would do it just a little bit better. The grappling, good. 9 takedowns landed. Very impressive. Overall, was pretty close to finishing the fight a couple times. CJ Vergara, good submission defense, but you missed weight, so what am I really going to say here? Also, Amabayev, good coming out party, good win, and I'm looking forward to see another fight for him. Next up, Robulis Despain versus Josh Parisian. Dude. Imagine you're coming off a loss. This is the last fight on your UFC tenure. That's probably what it is. And you have to fight the Green Giant. Dude, the 6'7" Cuban Olympic bronze medalist comes in. And it is the funniest thing, dude. This was probably one of my most anticipated fights of the card just because I wanted to see Robulis Despain make somebody into his victim. This man, in his past 4 MMA fights, has a combined fight time of, I'm not even kidding you, 19 seconds. This man comes in, brother, the American arena was booing most fighters that weren't coming from America. They were booing Josh Parisian and cheering on Romulus Despain. And I get it. There's a lot of Latin in Miami, and that's probably a big reason why. Cuba, Miami. Makes sense, but I'm gonna be honest with you. Unless I'm rooting for the underdog here, I would have been rooting for Romulus Despain. Because he was the safest bet of the entire card. This man, I'm not even kidding you, he walks into the fight, hands at his waist, and was keeping Josh Parisian on the back foot just about the entirety of the fight and throwing haymakers at the waist. That's something else, okay? When we passed the 5-second mark, Josh Anik, I wish I could make this up, said, "This is the longest fight in Romulus Despain's entire career." Bro, that sounds like shit out of a movie. My UFC 5 create-a character doesn't even have that good of a resume. And this man almost ended it the second after the 5th. Gets Josh Parisian up to the cage, throws a head kick, probably one of the most athletic head kicks ever thrown in the heavyweight division. However, he slips. As he's getting up, Josh Parisian is rushing at him. Romulus Despain is doing a little cha-cha behind him, and he's losing his footing. And I'm not even kidding you. He throws a left and a right, losing his balance on the back foot, and knocks down Josh Parisian. Comes up to him, holds the back of his head like baby bird, lands another ground and pound shot, and before he has time to fully cock back for another one, the referee comes in and tries his best to push this 6'7" man off of him. For anybody crying early stoppage and you're not ironic about it, let's put a 6'7" Cuban Olympic bronze medalist in front of you and have him throw a few shots at you. This man, the entire half of his face was a completely different color. Romulus Despain is going to be a problem in this division, and I am looking forward to it. I don't want to give him a fight yet, because that's going to be a different video, UFC 299 matchmaking. Watch out for that later today. But I see some great things in front of Romulus Despain. Next up, Marcel Pereira versus Michael Olijajuk. Oh, man. It's going to be a rough time. Okay, what do I have to say about this one? Marcel Pereira, first off, does a good little bit of choreography before he even gets into the cage. Mikel kind of wanted to pull off the scary walkout. Marcel Pereira, animated as usual, did the exact opposite of that. Did a little choreography, then walked out. Goes into the octagon, absolutely bullies Mikel, gets him into the clinch. Knee. The first knee hurt him. The second knee folded him. Gets him onto the cage. Another knee while he's on the cage. This is really hurting Mikel, so he turns his back trying to recover. Marcel Pereira hops onto that back, gets a rear naked choke. And I'm thinking here, okay, Mikel, let's show off some submission defense, bud. And I'm a guy that picked Marcel Pereira to win this fight. Gets it fully locked in. Next thing you know, man is limp. Marcel Pereira, by rear naked choke finish, choking his opponent out cold in just over a minute. Great fight. Great. Honestly, I need to see everybody who won it. So Romulus Despain won a performance bonus. Honestly, at this point, because of how good this card was, just make it so every single person who gets a finish in the UFC, give them a bonus. If they get a submission win, $50,000. If they get a walk-off KO, $50,000. If they get a brutal TKO, $50,000. I understand for this card you'd be doing a lot of payouts, but for most cards you're not going to be doing that. I think you need to do it to encourage finishes because Marcel Pereira came in, got the job done. Next up, Ian Cutelaba versus Philip Lins. I'm going to be honest with you. This one was a relative disappointment compared to every other fight. No, okay, not every other fight on the card. Let's be real. But I thought this was going to be a barn burner scrap. What it really was is Ian Cutelaba looking scary for the entire fight until the third round. And Philip Lins being on the back foot and trying to get him down to the ground so he could win off control time. That is really what happened. Landed 2 takedowns, but got a significant amount more of significant strikes. Total strikes went to Ian Cutelaba. I think the judges got it right, don't get me wrong. Philip Lins also was able to hurt him on the feet later on in the fight, but honestly, this one, I wanted a little bit better. I don't know why I expected a finish on this one. Ian Cutelaba kind of has a presence of somebody who's going to KO somebody. Philip Lins, I thought, was either going to get a submission or get brutally KO'd. I didn't think this was going to go to a unanimous decision. Overall, probably not my favorite fight on the card, but pretty good. Pretty good. Next up, we're out of the early prelims. Okay, let's just all appreciate the early prelims might have been... This is one of the best early prelims I have ever seen. It is that good. I am excited for UFC 300 to see if they can top that. They just need to beat Ian Cutelaba versus Philip Lins in these 2 fights. Oh, they did give him a performance bonus. Yeah, no, deserved. Next up, Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips. Phenomenal fight. Kyler Phillips is good, dude. Kyler Phillips was... I'm just going to say it. Kyler Phillips did better than O'Malley did against Pedro Munoz, which is kind of crazy to say. Now, am I saying Kyler Phillips is better than O'Malley? No. Kyler Phillips was just having a great performance in this fight. It was something else to see. Admittedly, this was a fight that I wasn't super hyped about. I don't know. This fight just didn't jump out at me the same as other fights on this card did, but Kyler Phillips definitely proved that I was overlooking him, and man was piecing up Pedro Munoz. Leg kick, body kick, uppercut, right hook. Like, it was... The way when he got into his flow of striking, the way he was piecing up Pedro Munoz throughout the entire fight, honestly, Kyler Phillips... I'm shocked they didn't give Kyler Phillips a performance bonus, because this was an amazing coming out party for him. And boom, Kyler Phillips is back in the rankings, and Pedro Munoz is out, which is something I didn't think I was going to say until Pedro Munoz retired, and I think we are getting close. But Kyler Phillips breaks into the top 15, and I'll do a little matchmaking for him, because a little fan favorite fight lost later on, and I might match them up with him. I'm still thinking on it. That video is going to be coming out. But Kyler Phillips, great fight. If I would to recommend a fight to rewatch if you missed it on the prelims, it would definitely be our prelim opener. Pedro Munoz, Kyler Phillips, great fight. Judges got it right. Kyler Phillips got it done. Rip Pedro Munoz. Mateus Gamera versus Rafael Dos Anjos. Not a fluke. Was a legit unanimous decision. But let me get this straight. So you beat Jalen Turner, Rafael Fiziev. I know that was a fluky one. I'm making a point here. How do we have these fluky win streaks? Arman Sarukian. How do you have these fluky wins, but yet you struggle against RDA? Let me just say this. RDA needs to be studied for his longevity. Rafael Dos Anjos. It's really impressive just how long he's been able to last in the lightweight division. And I know we give a lot of credit to Jim Miller for the exact same thing, but Rafael Dos Anjos, I think Rafael Dos Anjos beats Jim Miller at lightweight. I just think he's that much better. It really is insane just how well he's been able to do. I thought he was going to finish Gamrot. Not in the finishing sequence he had in the first round, but the way that he was able to find his strikes in the first round, I thought that was going to be continued in the rounds after. But the exact opposite happened. Rafael Dos Anjos got gassed because of the wrestling that Mateus Gamrot was putting on him. 11 total takedowns. Mateus Gamrot kind of took the Diet Marab Devasvili approach and would approach in the striking only to enter in the takedowns. And listen, you gotta win, you gotta win. If you were to lose to Rafael Dos Anjos, you're not gonna be getting a title shot anytime soon. And yeah, no, you were kind of robbed of a title shot for the whole Volkanovski Islam thing. That being said, you gotta fight somebody else before we put you up against the big dogs. And when I mean by somebody else, I mean Islam Makhachev. I think he needs 1 or 2 more fights to get a championship shot. I have a good idea of who he should be fighting. we'll get to that. But Mateus Gamrot versus Rafael Dos Anjos, not a great fight. Like, this honestly was probably a letdown on the prelims. I was not super impressed by this one. But Rafael Dos Anjos proves he has good longevity, and Gamrot proves he can take Rafael Dos Anjos down at will. That's kind of what happened. Caitlin Sermonera versus Macy Barber. I'm gonna be real with you. Macy Barber's blessed, dude. It just is. Holy shit. Like, normally when a women's UFC fighter is just objectively good looking, they aren't the best at fighting. Macy Barber legitimately put on a great performance. Yeah, that's really all I'm going to say. This was definitely a fight that I didn't expect it to be as good as it was. Macy Barber did pretty good. I was impressed. Now, I mean, this is coming from a dude that did pick Macy Barber. No, what do I have to say about this performance? Honestly, puts her in a pretty good standing in the division. Is he next for a title shot? No. He says he wants to fight Juliana. I think you're in that running. I think you could definitely do that. Juliana isn't super good. She hasn't really done anything in a minute. And I'm going to say Macy Barber versus Juliana is probably a good fight to make. I know I already spoiled it for the matchmaking video, but let's be real, not a lot of you guys were really looking forward to who I was going to matchmake with Macy Barber. Overall, good fight, but it was kind of just a slightly better than lukewarm performance, okay? Like, I'm just going to say it was not most people know what I'm talking about. Next up, Curtis Blades versus Jelton Almeida. Fraud. Let me get the amount of people that came to Jelton Almeida's defense for this loss is absolutely insane. Let me tell you what happened here. Jelton Almeida was taking down Curtis Blades at will the entirety of the first round. Takedown. Well, we'll get... DC pointed it out, and it is legit. It's just a flaw in the UFC stats. I wouldn't actually call them repeated takedowns. They're just mat returns. Like, if my hands have never come undone, and I'm just holding on to you, and you're able to find your footing again, and I get you back down to the mat, I wouldn't call that an extra takedown, because it's not like we ever got disconnected. It's just me returning you to the mat. I understand that's a nitpick, but it's definitely something that I'm like, yeah, no, you wouldn't actually count that as a takedown in an actual match. You wouldn't count it as a takedown. Overall, yeah, no, Jelton Almeida dominates the first round. Go into the second round. Let me tell you something. I went for a bathroom break for this fight. Yep. I went for a bathroom break in this fight after watching the first round because I expected this fight to be just Jelton Almeida versus Derek Lewis Part 2 after watching the entirety of the first round. I just wasn't hyped for it. The second round, as I'm coming back after having a glass of water, I hear Joe Rogan say, "Oh, he's hurt!" And I'm expecting Jelton Almeida to be winning by a TKO finish, only for me to come back. And Jelton Almeida is holding onto the leg of Curtis Blades for dear life, as Curtis Blades is hitting him with a hammer fist to the ear. Curtis Blades got a TKO finish over a Jelton Almeida with a 15-fight win streak by a TKO to the ear. I know that sounds mean, but at the same time, Jelton Almeida, you were a 3-1 favorite. You were taking down Curtis Blades at will in the first round, and honestly, I don't think you have a great chin for this division. Honestly. Curtis Blades fraud checks Jelton Almeida, putting himself in really good standing in this division, because let's face it, the heavyweight division is in a really weird spot right now, and Jelton Almeida is now out of that championship fight picture. And honestly, I'm pretty happy about it. Jelton Almeida, they gave you a Derek Lewis on short notice who just got out of jail for the whole Lamborghini scandal, and you couldn't finish him over a 5-round fight. And that's when the Curtis Blades fight was supposed to happen, only for you, when we do give you Curtis Blades, you take him down at will, but in the second round, you get TKO'd with a hammer fist to the ear. Yeah, no. Next fight, Petr Yan vs. Song Yadong. Now, this is where I get into my wrong predictions. I was wrong on this fight. However, My one stipulation that I will have for this, I did say it was going to be contingent on the second round because Petr Yan was pretty much guaranteed the third, and Song Yadong has great presser for the first. It was going to come down to the second, and the reason why I picked Song Yadong is I figured Petr Yan is not the best at getting the second round. It's very inconsistent whether he can get it. And Song Yadong has been proven that he can capture the second round of his fights. So that's why I picked Song Yadong to win. However, damn, I'm happy I'm wrong, though. Petr Yan loses the first, I'll admit it, but comes back in the second round, is able to win it. Third round, decisive victory for Petr Yan, is able to get a takedown. And I think part of this, like, don't get me wrong, people are making jokes like Petr Yan is still suffering PTSD from the Merab fight, and 100%. I feel like Petr Yan moving forward is definitely going to be fighting more hesitant for that takedown. Like, let's be real. If you're fighting anybody and they throw 60 takedowns at you in one fight, yeah, no. I'm going to have PTSD from double legs for the rest of my life. But Petr Yan, feeling that there isn't a lot of threat in a takedown from Song Yadong, is now thinking to himself, I can tee off on this kid. And I'm not going to say fraud check Song Yadong. This was a close fight, admittedly. But definitely halts the hype train from this Chinese prospect. And boy, am I happy I was wrong in this fight. I'm going to say it again. Good job on Petr Yan. He gets it done and keeps his career alive and now is in decent standing in the bantamweight division. Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena. Okay, this one was tough. I got this fight right. However, I'm not happy I got it right. I wanted Gilbert Burns to win like everybody else. And I'm just going to say it. The amount of people that picked Gilbert Burns over Jack Della Maddalena, I don't even think you guys were wrong, but I think a lot of you guys were in denial. Because you kept on saying, Gilbert Burns, did you guys forget what Gilbert Burns did? I understand. But Gilbert Burns has also taken a lot of damage in his career. And he's fighting somebody who does have power to put him down in the submission defense to survive. And don't get me wrong, Gilbert Burns, were there a few exchanges that I would probably say stand him up? Yes. But Gilbert Burns has proven that not recent in his career aside from the Neil Magny fight, that he can change a boring position into a submission. Now, I'm going to say Gilbert Burns was getting some great takedowns. He would go in for a body lock, he would have the headlock, grab the opposite leg for a cradle, and would just repeatedly get this takedown in Jack Della Maddalena. I'm going to say this right now. Jack definitely needs to cover that hole in his game, because it wasn't one time he was getting caught in this. He would get caught in this headlock position. Also, all fighters are banned from jumping guillotine. No more jumping guillotine. You guys are giving me a heart attack. Stop doing that. But Gilbert Burns, every time that he would get the headlock and he would stop, going for a guillotine, he would use the headlock to leverage it into either a single leg, a double leg, or most often, a cradle. And he would be able to get Jack Della Maddalena to his back very consistently. Although Jack Della Maddalena would be able to get up and the fight was close, Jack Della Maddalena was piecing up Gilbert Burns. Okay, yeah, piecing up Gilbert Burns. I mean, it wasn't like a very easy piecing him up. Gilbert Burns was actually winning the fight off of control time for the going into the decision, which is even more painful. Actually, let me do a round by round. Gets 3 takedowns in the first round. Gilbert Burns, I believe, won the first round. I think one judge actually scored this at 10-9, so it was a 10-9, 10-9 going into there. One judge had it a 10-9, 10-9, both going. And I think, 2 judges ruled it for Gilbert Burns, one ruled it a tie. Wins the first round fairly consistently with his takedowns. Kept on getting these takedowns going into the second. Now, I do feel like you could have scored Jack Della for round 2. I feel like you could. But Jack Della Maddalena, proven that he has good striking for the welterweight division. And then we're going into the third round. Consistent takedowns. But Jack Della Maddalena was the guy landing, doing the damage. Like, here's the thing. Gilbert Burns was winning going into the judges' scorecards, but I'm going to be honest with you, it probably should have been Jack. That's being said. I think the work that he did in the second and third round should have won him the fight if they went to a decision. But Gilbert Burns was going to win. Then what happens? is after they're getting up from being on the ground, the separation, Gilbert Burns, I feel like loses his footing. Like his back foot was so far off as he was getting up that it actually forced his levels down, and Jack Della Maddalena is able to land a crisp knee that drops Gilbert Burns, and Jack Della Maddalena gets a TKO in the third round of a fight that he was going to lose, and puts him, again, in a great spot in the welterweight division. And it's going to be fun matchmaking him, because I will say this before we get into that video. Jack Della Maddalena calls out Shavkat Rakhmonov, the teammate of Gilbert Burns, for a number one contenders match. And that does solve some problems that the welterweight division is having. I need to think on that a little bit more before I make that my matchup. But that is the breakdown of this fight. Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page. What do I have to say about this one? Weird meets weirder. Michael Venom Page. That's really what the stats were? I still say, okay, looking at the stats, that's very deceiving. I think somebody might have actually got, I'm going to say this, though. Okay, good. Significant strikes were in favor of Michael Venom Page. That makes more sense. Michael Venom Page was keeping this as a karate match. That's what it felt like. Was keeping this at distance, keeping this on the outer ring of the octagon the entire time. And part of that reason is one, he has better lateral movement than Kevin Holland does because of his background. And if he was able to get taken down like he did by Kevin Holland, he'd be able to use the cage to get back up. That's one reason he was on the outer ring of the cage basically the entire time and wasn't fighting for the center like he did in his previous bouts for Bellator. You got to be careful if you're Michael Venom Page going up against these UFC fighters who are admittedly a bit more well-rounded. He kept it to where he was going to win. A kickboxing match. And that's what he was able to do. He would... I'm going to sound like a hater, but I feel like he did just enough to win every round. It wasn't particularly a special fight, and you could tell Kevin Holland was definitely getting a little bit frustrated, especially going into the third, where he was just outright mocking Michael Venom Page for fighting the way that he was. Michael also said that a big inspiration for his performance was KSI, which is hilarious. And that's what it felt like. Keeping it at distance, hopping around, engaging in one or two, and then retreating back to distance because he was worried about the grappling of Kevin Holland. That is what we saw in this fight. And I'm glad this didn't get a bonus. Now, is this a bad performance? By no means, no. It was just frustrating for what it could have been. And I think I have a few good matchups for Michael Page in this fight. I'm happy he was able to win because it does make that division a little bit more interesting. But that's where I stand on this fight. It was not very impressive, and most people did not think it was that impressive. Kind of a missed opportunity. But Michael Venom Page does get it done. Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Honestly, I was the happiest to be wrong about the Petr Yan fight. I was pretty happy about this one too. A lot of people are saying Benoit Saint-Denis fraud checked. I don't know. Benoit's admittedly good. Benoit did do good against Dustin Poirier in the first round. Was taking him down, getting a few close submission attempts on Dustin Poirier, and part of that... Okay. Also, let me say this. It says one submission attempt. It was pretty good. It was a pretty close rear naked choke. And 4 for Dustin Poirier. However, I need to stress this enough, and I need you to listen loud and clear to me. Dustin, if you're out there. Stop jumping guillotine. Stop. Please. You're making me have a heart attack. Dude, I swear, most of the takedowns that Benoit was getting in this fight were actually coming off of Dustin Poirier jumping a guillotine. It was so frustrating to watch live because he wasn't getting it. I know some people were saying, oh, he was pretty close going into that finishing sequence. The only time where admittedly he was pretty close is when he had the guillotine and Benoit Saint-Denis was able to put the hands on the hip and pass into a side control and get his head on the opposite side. That was his best bet. What I think was happening with Dustin Poirier is Dustin Poirier was looking to get the guillotine choke on the right side. as they're going up against the cage, Benoit Saint-Denis, if he was going to get out of this guillotine, is going to have to jump his body to the opposite side. So what I mean by that is, if I have your head in a guillotine on this side, you need to jump your leg and body onto here, because now the angle of me strangling you has completely, like, there's no angle that I'm choking you out. If we're on the same angle and your body's on this area, then I'm able to wrap my legs around you and I'm able to get the guillotine choke. And that's what I think Dustin was trying to do here, is trying to get his left side to the octagon so Benoit couldn't jump off. But Benoit was just putting his hands on the hips of Dustin Poirier and just sliding into a side control or a half guard and pretty much completely negating Dustin Poirier's guillotines and getting these free takedowns that won him the first round. And that was the tale of the first round of this fight. Now, going into the second round, gets one good takedown, I will admit it, off a very frustrating guillotine. Again, stop trying to jump guillotines. But I swear, one of the guillotines that he was going for, he wasn't jumping it. He almost uses it as like a form of a snap down. And as Benoit Saint-Denis is getting his levels back, Dustin Poirier starts unloading. I believe he gets a uppercut, then he goes for a right hook. And then after that, you could tell Benoit is rocked. Goes for another takedown. Then Dustin Poirier, sewing that dog in him, drops this man with one of the most ferocious hooks in recent memory from Dustin Poirier. Kind of reminiscent of the Conor McGregor finish, and he does point fun at Conor McGregor in the post-fight press conference for that, and finishes Benoit Saint-Denis, derailing the hype train. I'll say it derailed the hype train, but Benoit Saint-Denis is admittedly pretty talented, and I am excited to see what comes next later on in his career. But Dustin Poirier proves that he has never lost a second fight in a row in his entirety of his UFC tenure, and that continues. And calls out Islam Makhachev in the post-fight presser. Not post-fight presser, the post-fight interview. And I'll talk about that later. We'll see how it lines up. And finally, our main event. This fight, I got right to a T. Sean O'Malley was going to win a unanimous decision. It wasn't going to be a finish. Marlon Vera is going to be too durable for his own good. I will say that Sean O'Malley hurt him more than I thought he was going to hurt him. But Marlon Vera, what do I have to say here, dude? Sean O'Malley, did he prove that the first fight was a fluke? Some people are going to say yes. I don't understand how it was a fluke to begin with, because it was a leg kick. Like, I understand it was the perennial nerve, but I mean, like, it was a leg kick in an MMA fight. But anyway, Sean O'Malley wins the rematch very unanimously. Every single round went to O'Malley, and I think the judges did get that one right. Marlon Vera didn't win a single one. But Marlon Vera proved he has heart, proved he has that durability, and this is the first time in his entire UFC career he was able to get cut by a UFC fighter. O'Malley, so think about this. Chito Vera is the only person who has a win over O'Malley. O'Malley's the only dude to ever cut Chito Vera in the 10 years he's been in the UFC. And crazy enough, outside of going to his knee at the end of the second round, I believe, Marlon Vera was not dropped one time in this fight. He slipped, never got dropped. Good performance from Sean O'Malley. People that are saying that this wasn't a good performance by O'Malley, and you're O'Malley fans, I legitimately don't understand you. I don't. Because what did you expect? Did you think O'Malley was going to be getting these finishes all throughout his MMA career? And that it was going to be, oh, he finishes Chito, he finishes Merab Dvalishvili. No, he is a point fighter that relies on his opponent to give him openings. And Marlon Vera was giving him a few. He was dipping his head, got clipped by a knee, almost got finished, but didn't. Every time that Marlon Vera was coming in for a blitz, he would have a few little bits of success, but then Sean O'Malley would be able to use his lateral movement to keep him at distance the entire fight and piece him up. That is what happened in this fight. And when Marlon Vera decided to be a bit more conservative with how he was going to approach the striking, Sean O'Malley was able to keep him at a jab and win the rounds through a coast, but he wasn't going to get a finish then. And that was this fight to a T. Now, okay, maybe it's just me, Make fun of me in the comment section. I don't care. There's something about when UFC fighters, like, there isn't a respect at the end. It kind of annoys me. Because there's literally no reason for Sean O'Malley to have any, anger towards Marlon Vera. Marlon Vera tried to shake O'Malley's hand at the end of this fight. And O'Malley just straight up dissed him on it. And I understand it's a minor nitpick, but, it's a character thing for me. I've definitely, even if the only times where I'm not going to shake your hand in any type of, sporting event is if I feel that you cheated. But even if I feel like you won in a way that I don't respect, I will still shake your hand and say, good fight. I don't know. There's something about O'Malley not shaking Marlon Vera's hand that really makes me want to see him get brutally KO'd by Ilia Topuria. Or wrestle fucked by Merab Dvalishvili. Those are... I'm still working out who I want him to fight next in the matchmaking video that's going to come right after this. But that is my breakdown of UFC 299. Tell me what your favorite fight on the entire card was. Tell me your favorite moment on here. And before I make my matchmaking video, put your predictions down in the comment section down below. And if you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe. Really helps me in the algorithm. If you share this to your buddies, it ultra helps me in the algorithm. Thank you to my subscribers. We have reached over 5,400, which is absolutely insane. The goal is to get to 10K. Honestly, let's just try to get to 10K subscribers. Thank you guys, and I'll see you all next time.